Welcome back, everyone. DestinysJesus here. In this video, looking at 3 levels of solo cash cups. For our pro player, we're looking at Benjyfishy. Obviously, in the same cash cup by him, he had loads of really good games there. We're looking at a bunch of hype takes, lots of fighting strategies, and a couple of spawn things for piece control and stuff like that that will help you guys out as well. For our intermediate level player, the kind of semi-pro, we're actually been using a player with 0 earnings until last week. This guy messaged me like 2 weeks ago. He got the solos masterclass and he managed to get 10th in this cash cup. I'll show his like Fortnite tracker on the screen now, and you can see absolutely insane by him to go from 0 earnings just to get in this insane placement just because he was applying all things in the solos masterclass, which we'll talk about a bunch of endgame things for refreshes and for rotates that he was doing really nicely as well. And for our beginner level player, we're actually looking at Inferno. As you can see, he didn't have a single win here, and there's also a bunch of endgames, as you can see, that are 20 minutes long, and he's not really getting too much placement. There's a couple mistakes in there. We're talking about a couple things that you guys can use to diagnose whenever you're videoing what your mistakes are and how you can properly spot them, which will help you out as well. Before we get into this, make sure to subscribe. We're about to hit 100k. Make sure to do a like on the video and make sure to go check out the solos masterclass. If you guys are interested in improving at solos, definitely the place to go. Alright, let's get into this. Now for our intermediate player here, Dutchery, one thing that's really important and that he does is understanding the other player that he's fighting or spawn, their psychology. This is in the last game, it's just the final queue, and he's fighting a really good player, Gambit 2 soft spawn, who's obviously done really well in solo cash cups before, and he knows that he's probably going to be making a desperation play here in a second to either get into the last game or to go ahead and actually win this fight. And one thing that Toos does improperly is he puts himself into a corner here and reads this really well. As you can see, he's going to go ahead and realize that Toos needs to make a big play. He needs to try to go for a pump shot. And what he does is just hop straight into the box, commit in, catch Toos completely off guard. And at this point, while Toos is escaping and leaving, he uses all of his mats and burns through them. And then Dutch Reach gets a really simple elim. You need to read the other player, what situation they're in, to actually catch them off guard and get the Edom as quick as possible like he did there. So for our spawn for Benji, he's landing over at Believer's Beach, and as you can see here, his piece control in these early game fights is literally perfect. He gets the sidewall in this guy, and again, as he overcommits past him, he gets everything around him. You can see he's got the back walls plus the floor and a cone here, just to force the Angel. You're always going to be trying to force an Angel when you've got a pump versus tack scenario, and it's in your favor like it is there for Benji. During this next fight, right immediately after the first one, you can see Benji gets beamed to low HP, and the one thing that he does really well here is just knowing that he's got this mat advantage, so he can play this for time. So you can see here, he wastes loads of metal and hard mats getting away from this guy, pops one mini, starts baiting the second mini, and then goes for the timing shot. It's really important that you have to know in these early off spawn engagements that you need to take counter damage versus the other player. So you can see he gets that one mini off, baits the second one, insta goes for a shot, other guy panics since he's got cracked, Benji commits in for the wall take, gets the piece control on the side wall again, forces a cone, crouches down, really good movement by him to get out of the way of this guy's line of sight, as you can see, and then he just gets a simple Edom just like that. So you can see our beginner player here is going to go ahead and lead this opening fight with a snipe, always really good to try to get damage before you start a fight. Comes over and constantly pressures and gets a little bit more damage in this guy. It's the correct thing by blocking off the top there. Really good solid fighting fundamentals by him. Also, as he goes for this wall place, he forces the stair in the box rather than just going for the flat wall replace. And at this point, you need to understand the other player's psychology. The top is blocked off. The only way they can escape is either coming towards you or it's going out to the side. So what he's going to go ahead and do is predict that this guy is going to go out to the side. And the thing you need to do is avoid taking a lot of damage here. He commits straight into the box, gets in, gets hit for 100. And it is very easy to just lose a fight like this if you miss a single shot. Luckily enough, he's able to kill him, but he still wastes 100 shield that really didn't need to on the opening of this fight. Just getting out of those bad habits where you waste too much shield during a fight and trying to take them with as little damage as possible is probably the better thing to do in that situation. Lucky enough, the other guy had a lot of heals because of how much he pressured him as he came over, so he's able to get pretty stacked, get all of his minis and bigs back up, and have a really easy setup going to endgame. Let's take a look at what actually his endgame mistakes were, because they were pretty disastrous and it's him dying and wasting a lot of time in this game. Now when it comes to endgame mistakes and VODing, whenever you guys are doing this for yourself or for your trio, don't just look at the exact issue that caused your death going to right this area here and thinking in that kind of short-term mindset. Instead, you want to go ahead and look a lot further back, look at the positioning that led to that mistake or another issue. The big issue that I'm noticing Inferno making is the fact that he's being so aggressive on going for snipes instead of just prioritizing getting good third zone positioning. With the amount of loot that he has here, 3 bigs, 6 minis, pad as well, he should just be forcing himself into center third, getting on a high layer so he's going to get fourth zone guaranteed, and then he can have a really easy endgame to recycle someone's pad and then pad first moving. Instead, he's being way too aggressive, and he basically forces himself into being a pretty scuffed spot here. As you can see, he's boxed up in a really open position, and later on, when he doesn't get fourth zone because he's on the edge of third, as you can see, he's going to have a really tough time rotating in, wastes a lot of mats, and puts himself into a bad spot. Always think about the game on a larger scale whenever you're VODing, and also whenever you're playing, think about how you can get yourself into the best position possible to last a long game. As you can see here, he's got a max distance 4th rotate to do, loads of players behind him that he's been shooting at and annoying the whole game. They're all going to be trying to get some damage on him and get some revenge on him, and he has to rotate with a lot of congestion compared to the other players near him. This right here is my absolute favourite setup when it comes to W King and solos. It also works really nicely in trios, and this is how you do it. It's basically called the arc and wall replace. You approach from the diagonal of somebody's box, just like this, and the important thing to do is to make sure that you've got this wall placed so the other player can't run out at you. It's really important to do that just so they can't run out. You can also possibly block off the top while going for this wall. And one really crucial thing that Benji's kind of mistaking here is going for these trade shots. As you can see, he's not swinging onto the right hand peak. Instead, he's just straight up facing this guy, gets traded a little bit, and then again here, gets traded just by a pre-fire because he's standing on the right peak, rather than moving to the left, editing, and then swinging out to the right. Gets traded again, and then finally here, again, he's over-peaking, and he actually gets shot by this guy. Lucky he mostly gets out the way of this shot, but he still gets traded a lot. You need to make sure that you swing the whole way to the left while you're opening the wall, and then swing back into the right peak at the correct time. Obviously, Benji gets the kill, but it could have been a lot cleaner. Another thing that Benji does really well throughout his games here is understanding his rotate timing so he can get a refresh. A lot of players kind of mess this up and they just kind of rotate at random timing, but if you time your rotates properly, you can often find refreshes just by being in the correct spot at the correct time. So you can see here, Benji's rotating from somewhat edge 3rd into 4th. He's just building in front of him a little bit and catches a really nice timing where there's this other player car rotating straight in front of him, as you can see. He pauses as soon as he gets into zone. This other player's car rotating too deep in the center of everybody, and then Benji just immediately capitalized on it, starts spraying him with other players, gets the elim, and then tunnels over to the mats. He does the exact same thing a second on after getting his mats here, as you can see. On 50-50 zone, he's boxed up on all the mats that he got from earlier. He's just chilling, he's got really good loot for endgame now, and he spots an opportunity again where he can possibly look for a kill on this other player that's getting focused. It's really important to make sure you're diligent and always paying attention to what's going on around you in these endgames. So you can see he gets a crack tag on this other player, starts building forwards towards him, making sure he's got a little bit of a peek box so he doesn't get beamed or pumped from any weird angles or anything like that. And at this point, he actually commits down onto the wall in a second here, gets the wall replaced. He knows his other players getting focused from a lot of different angles. Benji just gets the elim really simply, gets the important mats and the heals as well, and then gets straight back out. Happy with the elim, doesn't need to overcommit since he has just got 2 kills really freely before endgame, and that sets him up perfectly. Max mats, pads, peppers as well. He's going to really easy in game here as well. Another mistake that our beginner player is making, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are making as well, is not getting enough scouting information on the players around you. In these endgame situations, he's doing the correct thing here, but you need to make sure you know exactly where all the other players are. He's nice elevated layer on 4th zone. He's going to wait 50-50 sharp and start closing, and he knows he wants to recycle a pad and save zone. As you can see, he doesn't scout out enough. He doesn't know there's a player on this cone or this cone. He doesn't really build around himself properly. So when he goes to recycle these pads here, which is obviously a good play, he ends up getting beamed for low HP, pads in, and now he's in a really scuffed position here where he's on low HP, doesn't have any whites since he's running sniper, which he probably should have dropped earlier for mid kits, and now he's in a pretty scuffed spot. And he ends up just dying through an AR spray through his wall, which is obviously something avoidable right here, but you can't just look at the one avoidable mistake. There was a load of mistakes earlier on that led to his death, and led to literally a 25-minute game with queue times as well, into only getting 31st place with 1 elim, which is not very good. So this is a really nice endgame rotation by Dutry that leads into him getting a couple of refreshes and getting good enough loot to actually win this game. Let's go ahead and look how he did this. It's basically with no movement, he's rotating second moving. As you can see, he lets Storm basically catch up to him, lets these other players start tarping forward, let the Shambles players move forward, and then he's going to go ahead and do really good layering and positioning in terms of edge zone. So you can see here, he forces his way over to the right hand side of the Storm. This is obviously the correct thing to do in solos when you're rotating. Don't just rotate through the middle, go towards an edge, then you can possibly look inwards. You don't have to worry about this whole side of Storm, as you can see here. Basically makes it way easier for him to go ahead and rotate. Really good layer swap that he does in a second here. His decision to go down, also does it in wood because he knows that he's not going to get sprayed at all. Now he swaps into hard mats as he gets in towards low ground, and I talked about several times the red line theory. How you can find refreshes in solos consistently is just dropping into a more congested layer into low ground, as you can see what he does here, then making a 2x1, having extra space. As you can see, he's got his extra box backwards to look for kills, and a bunch of kills just run straight into him. This guy dies right next to him. The next player who shambles dies right next to him. He drops down into low ground, claims absolutely everything, builds all around himself, gets the chug cannon, gets peppers as well, which is a really smart play to do, gets out of Storm, and then from there you can see he's basically the most stacked player in the lobby after he gets HP up, just because of those really simple fundamentals: getting to edge, getting to a good layer, getting into position on that red line where you can find a kill, and then getting the refresh when it comes to you. Again, here you can see good endgame fundamentals by Dutchry. As he tarps forward, he's going to go ahead and look for a kill on his wall, get somebody running straight into him, and at this point he's got enough mats to actually win the game, but he needs to choose the correct layer and how he's going to go ahead and do that. Really good awareness by him to read how many players are left. As you can hear, there's 2 players on low ground fighting, one of them's just being killed. Also knows there's another player on this layer here. So what does that mean? It means high ground's completely free. He goes up, double checks it just to be sure, as you can see, and then now he's in a really winnable situation. After fending off this other player and forcing them to drop down towards low ground, the one thing you need to do in these final situations is understand your win condition, and for him here, it's just going to be the chug cannon and his amount of mats. He should not do this play where he jumps down to low ground. We really need to avoid trying to get greedy for these final kills. It will come just in time, but obviously with this other player getting the kills here, the only way that he loses this 1v1 is just by misplaying the amount of stuff that he has. So you can see he gives up height, other player takes it very well, but at this point, Reek realizes I've got enough mats, I can just play these right hand peaks in a second, plays the right hand peak, guy walks right into it, and he hits the final shot to get the top 10 in the cash cup. Really good endgame fundamentals by Dutchry, really good stuff overall, and congrats to him for getting top 10 from literally having 0 earnings beforehand. One thing that is really important when it comes to fighting and not taking damage is how good your movement is when it comes to box fight situations. You can see here Benji gets 100 tag versus other player during moving zones, and what he's going to go ahead and do is jump straight into the box and look at his movement as he actually commits into this final shot versus somebody with spaz. As you can see here, he swings and actively looks to his right hand side. You can see he's moving his crosshair away from another player, looking to the right hand side just to avoid the shot. The effect that creates is basically your character model, as you can see, turns away. It's so important. It's called movement acceleration, where you move faster in the direction that you're looking. So you can see Benji does it there perfectly to go ahead and make this guy miss his shot. Then he gets the 100 tag again, commits him to org, and really just goes sideways strafing at the final end. Probably the best movement settings to use at the moment is the Wooting software. I got a lot of questions about this. Just make sure you set it either to 60% or 63%, as you can see here on the strafe angle. And that basically means that you're going to be moving at the maximum speed side. So it's not the maximum full extent, but it means when you're coming to turning left and right and going back and forth and strafing around in the box, you've got no movement delay and no sprint delay, so you insta go straight into sprinting, obviously. So when it comes to first moving during Benji's endgames, one thing that he's doing really well is understanding how he can possibly go for a win condition. This game has got loads of movement, he's got loads of heals and everything, but he knows to go for that possible win condition, he has to go for a high ground take at some point. So you're going to see how he does it. Hits the pad, he should be floating a little bit better here. His flight path is kind of way out to the right. It's really easy for him to get beamed, which is what happens from the guy on height. And as soon as he lands, he does the correct thing, makes a 2x1, make sure he's safe and connected, and then full heals up, as you can see. Now as soon as he's healed up, he pops the pepper and starts scouting at height. He knows holding height on first moving is very challenging. So other players probably burn through a lot of mats. As you can see, they're doing a quite expensive tarp. So what Benji does is go for this sneaky backside height take. So other players focus on all the gliders and everything flying around. And obviously all those gliders are going to be landing towards front side in zone. And Benji's doing this height take from the back. He ramps up very sneakily, goes ahead and crouches up. And the important thing here is to always commit into getting a pump tag so you can win the 1v1. Gets that 120 tag, just misses out on the full box versus this other player. And at this point, this is a really smart play. He knows with his range advantage with the pump, he's also listening to the audio cue of what shotgun the other player has. He knows he's got attack, so Benji's very simply just going to play the range here. He knows the players on height psychology, so I need to get some damage in so I can get heals off, and Benji knows his advantage of the pump versus tack on this range. Hits a really easy shot, and then now has a very simple height hold for the rest of the endgame. He's killed the guy on height, he's cap mats, and he's done a really good job of setting himself up for the win here. I talked about this earlier, and it's basically how good Benji's movement is when it comes to these 1v1 situations. As you can see here, this player's obviously very good. He's on 100 points, he's got a load of kills this endgame in a very short period of time. Benji commits into the box, gets hit for 100 straight away, and this is where his exceptional movement comes in. So first of all, crouches underneath that second shot, basically just forces the guy to miss, and he also swings over to Benji's left, gets out of the way. And very important here is Benji swinging into the guy's character model to force him to miss this next shot. Whenever you go into some of these character models, just swing to your right, into their left. As you can see here, Benji's literally invisible on this guy's screen. It's very hard for him to hit that shot. And then finally here, Benji's swinging back over to the other side, making it very hard. He's doing very erratic crouching movements, as you can see. And the guy misses the final shot. Misses 3 pump shots in a row versus Benji, or 3 tack shots in a row. And Benji wins that final 1v1. In a situation he never would have won otherwise, apart from just having good movement, which is so important to have, as I mentioned.